You're still watching this morning on ITV. It's time now to look at education and, of course, what Nigeria is doing to turn out the best. We've seen at several fora Nigerian graduates, compete with those, in Western world, and they come out very, very well. We can talk so much about that in all fields of endeavor, starting with those in health. We've seen what they are doing in where they are in the UK, in the US, and of course in some part of Asia. Talk about engineering. There's so much that we can talk about. Even on that, we've seen that most beautiful cars in the world are designed by Nigerians, and so the list is endless. And this is coming from Nigeria, coming from the hard work Nigerian vice chancellors are putting in their various schools. And on this discussion, we are going to be doing it with, a lady who is, of course, described as the digital vice chancellor of University of Benin. She's, of course, the second female vice chancellor as far as University of Benin is concerned. She's equally the chairman, the committee of vice chancellor of Federal University. So many caps she's put on. Professor Lilian Salami, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Let me start with development in University of Benin, where we've seen the latest ranking, and UniBen is among the schools that are in the top position. What is responsible for it?
When I took over as the Vice Chancellor, which is some 3 years plus now, part of our mandate and part of our commitment that we promised the university stakeholders and then the larger community is that we would rewrite the narrative of the university and try to put University of Benin at the point where the university will be an envy of other universities. And that is what we have tried to do, and we have been doing that, and we're still committed into doing that. We're training our students not just for now. We're training our students for the future. We're training them so that they'll be able to compete globally. So we're not just training students who are, and that is why you're beginning to see the good results that are coming up in the University of Benin. Our students are doing exceptionally well. We just about some few weeks ago, our students developed a vehicle, and I'm sure that we're just waiting for entrepreneurs to come and visit the university and see how they can take this to the next level. Our students are doing very well. We are collaborating with the best universities in terms of technology globally. SERI is one of those, and so we are putting especially driving the university with technology, and I think that is why we're getting the results we're getting now. Staffs are not left out of this. We are ensuring that staff also upload their information, that they give all the benefits that they have, or all the skills that they have, so that we can showcase University of Benin. So it's a holistic thing. We're looking at our students, we're looking at our staff, developing them in different areas, so that at the end of the University of Benin will truly be the universe that we all want to be proud of.
Yeah, I know in the time past we saw that University of Benin is one of those schools that actually carried out a stem cell transplant. Of course, what people know as conversion of someone who is a sickle cell to AA. That was done by Dr. Bazwai, from University of Benin.
Yes.
Yeah. So why is it different from other schools? And you just talked about the fact that as even the vehicle develop, what is different with the research and development?
Well, again, our emphasis, like I said, is that we want to be able to drive the university in terms of research output. I was at the Education Summit some few weeks ago, and part of what I actually said is that even our entrepreneurs can actually mandate universities to come up with research that are tailored to their needs. And so rather than going outside the country and spending our hard-earned, our money, we can actually put our universities to work. Now, a researcher who is self-sponsoring himself doesn't have that kind of, money to invest into carrying out the research holistically. But when you have support from the users or those who are actually in the industries, then of course we can put researchers to better use. And I think that is where we need to go. Begin to look inwards rather than rushing to get these substandard goods and flooding our markets. So actually the answer is we are emphasizing research output. And thank God for TEDFund. TEDFund is doing exceptionally well in terms of research development, as well as empowering scholars to put in their very best. So I think with all of that, we would get there very soon.
Yeah, most time when you see admission lists come out, some are happy, many others are sad, and it will be like, why can't the university expand the carrying capacity to ensure that more people are admitted? They look at that because of the quality of learning. So any measures on the ground to increase the carrying capacity?
Yeah, I'll tell you. Our principal, regulator actually is NUC, the National University Commission. But however, some of the professions also have their councils. So this council actually come to the university to assess both infrastructure as well as human resources. And so when they do that, in their judgment, they put a tag on or a quota to the universities and say, look, we have assessed your infrastructure, we have assessed your the human resources available to you, and therefore we feel that what you have can only properly or adequately train 30 students. And so for you to now ask for addition to that, you must also step up your infrastructural facilities as well as human capacity. And we've had issues in this area. One of the biggest problems that most universities are facing now is the paucity of lecturers even in those hardcore areas. Medicine, for instance, we don't have many lecturers that we would have wished that we have. And that is where most of the applicants you get in terms of admission, more than 50% are asking to read medicine. And we can't, because our carrying capacity is only 150, University of Benin. And so you have 3,000 asking to read medicine and you can only give 150. It becomes really, really difficult to please these children who want to be doctors, who want to come and give back to a nation that they dearly love. So we're working on some of these areas, and as soon as we have the ban lifted in terms of employment, we should be able to fill in those critical areas that will result to expanding our quota system.
Okay, let's quickly look at the committee where you are serving as the chairman, Committee of Vice Chancellors of Federal University. Tell us about it.
Well, first of all, let me use this opportunity to thank my members. We are more than 40. Wow. And for them to believe huge. That I will be able to lead the group, actually is a privilege that I don't take for granted. I think it's a privilege, and I have I've committed myself to doing the very best in trying to rebrand, if I may use that word, the Committee of Vice Chancellor. We appear to be voiceless when indeed we are the practitioners. We are the ones who wear the shoes, like they say, and so we know where it hurts. But most times we are not in the center of the play. We are not consulted sometimes, and yet we should be the frontliners. So my regime, my tenure, I hope that we'll be able to reposition ourselves as Vice Chancellor and take the bull by the horn. so that the university system can be a better one that we all will be proud of, so that posterity will actually look back and say, wow, we did our very best.
Yeah, but I must ask the area of priority for the committee.
Yes.
You know, when it comes to education, most time you are told this person is found worthy in learning, in character and learning.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So in learning, let's look at what is the committee bringing out in terms of ensuring that the issue of half-baked graduate is, no longer there. And then when we talk about character, you know, most time the sad news in school, people just get involved into, some groups, the groups that don't mean well. At the end of the day, the student is expected to come out, well bred, but something goes wrong. So
Yes.
which area is of priority to the committee?
Well, first of all, let me debunk the issue of we have students that are half-baked. If I remember my Psychology 101, which is about some 40 years ago, labeling, they say, tends to breed, character. So you want to label, and then you find that people eventually start behaving that way. We are doing the very best, and if you remember at the beginning of this discussion, that our students are doing exceptionally well. Now, exceptionally well, that is not saying that the resources are there, but we're working harder than we should to ensuring that we have quality students that are able to stand the test of time. So in terms of, prioritizing what we need, it's difficult here because, like I said, the human resources is dwindling. We have not, for the past 3 years plus now, in my tenure, I have not been given approval to employ one individual. And yet, there are those, unfortunately, who have died. There are those who have decided to go to look for greener pastures. There are those who have retired. And if a system is not revolving, a system where people are leaving, you're not filling the gap, you're going to have issues. So that is one. And then, of course, we talk about, infrastructural decay. Some of the buildings in University of Benin, for instance, were there even before, so that's about 50 years back. So we must constantly, and thank God that at that time they were using good material. Otherwise, by now, some of the universities would have been looking like glorified primary school. Again, I want to thank TED Fund. They've done exceptionally well. My last convocation, I actually commissioned 25 projects.
25.
Those 25 projects, more than 80% were funded by TED Fund. So TED Fund has come to rescue the university system, but for the good work of TED Fund, I don't know where we'll be. And again, that is because ASU fought for that, and the federal government bought into it, and they are really using TED Fund to drive the system. So it's difficult to say where is the priority area. Now, in terms of restiveness of our children, I hate to say this as a parent, but a lot of the children that we have now are not the children that should actually be in the universities that we'll be proud to give our certificates to. Like you said, we are not only just developing skills, we also hope that they're able to carry the university and become, ambassadors of our university. Parents have failed, and I think a lot of what we are seeing today is the failure of the homes. Parents are no longer, being able to control these children. We know that they are in areas where they are easily influenced by peer groups, and that is the character of this group of. And so I think the home has to do a lot. It's difficult for the university to come and start teaching character when the child is already 18. But I think...
But don't we have a system of fishing out those that are, terrible in terms of character?
No, well, we have, but again, you have laws governing the university. It's not a jungle city. So even when a student must have crossed the line, and I say cross the line before such a child is expelled. So we cannot. And then those ones also who are, this terrible character are very influential among the, they are the ones who want to do a looter at every, beck and call. They are the ones who want to boycott classes and all of that. So we have them. But all we're doing is, as parents, as lecturers, we try as much as possible to use the carrot, like they say, and the stick and the carrot. Where we need to call them to order, we do that, and where we need to pamper them to say, we've done exceptionally well, we do that. I, for instance, in the university, we have put in place where we applaud students and then put them, on our, our website and all of that. The reason for that is that they then become mentors. The others are seeing them as motivating, factor, and so they key into all of that. So that's what we're doing. So we showcase the very good ones, and then the bad ones, we say to them, you have to change. But like I said, it's difficult to, ask them to leave unless they have crossed the line and they've established reasons why they should not be in the university.
Yeah, but this particular one I want to add is critical.
Yes.
Critical in the sense that, at times some kids go to school very good and they arrange themselves well, if I should use that word, but along the line you discover that some staff, academic and non-academic, lead them astray. What is the committee doing about that?
Well, University of Benin, and I can also tell you that the Committee of Vice Chancellor, even when we chat, we have zero tolerance when it comes to education corruption. And education corruption is wide, is diverse, but in fact I am advocating where a lecturer or a non-teaching staff is caught involving in education corruption, that such a lecturer's name should be published in the dailies so that they never get any job in any of the universities anymore. The reason for that is people who are of dubious character, if you send them away from one university, they go to perpetrate it in another university. But once it is known everywhere, NUC now has the list, the dailies and the media also have the list, so they are real, and then that will serve as deterrent to others who want to take that direction. But I am telling you, we have zero tolerance. But I'll tell you the problem that we have as vice chancellors, as management of universities. The students will first of all call woe. Oh, this lecturer is this and that. And then you tell them, because we can't just hear without investigating. And that is why we are there. That is why we're not in a jungle. We are in a structured, environment. So what we do is we set up committees and say, okay, now, you who has complained, can you discuss? And that is the end. You never see them again. I have even in some cases promised the student that I guarantee that all the courses will be marked elsewhere if they think that they would now be victimized. Even at that, you won't see them. So we are trying as much as possible to encourage students that they tell us. We are not magicians, so it's not.
But the headache is when you have issue to do with a male lecturer and a female student.
Yes.
It's a tough one.
It's a tough one because you can't really draw the line between was there agreement, at what point did it become SAR, and all of that. But again, if somebody is not talking, the male lecturer, who is, we assume here, is older, should know better, is always going to defend himself. And then the student who should come to say, no, this isn't what happened, you don't see the student. And so we're trying as much as possible that before you start crying woe, that you must establish. Some of them are clever enough, they record the messages, and then we can use that to prosecute the individual. Even at that, we still need to hear from both parties. But at least we have established some line. But some just come to cry and then they tell you, oh, the man was doing that and doing that, or the woman was doing this or doing that, because I don't want to, so that the men don't kill me and say it's only men. The women may not be sexually harassing, or they can. But also, like I said, education corruption cuts across, even material, gratification from students and all of that stuff. which a man or woman can also be part of. But we are trying to ensure that we have zero tolerance with any of those vices, because these children, we are caretakers. Their parents, they've entrusted these children to us, and so we must take care of them, and that is what it is.
The economy is very tight.
Yes.
It's getting tighter by the day.
Yes.
You can't control how much a student can spend in school in the next session, because the prices of goods and services would have gone up. A plate of food would have tripled. And while they are battling with what they will use to put body and soul together, and then go to lecture theaters and read, to have good grades, some lecturers are not helping in terms of, you must buy this textbook, you must buy that textbook. If you don't buy this textbook, you won't pass the course. And if you must buy the textbook, you must give your name to your class prefect. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
What is the way out?
No, but let me tell you, the very first thing I did as a vice chancellor was to call a special senate. And at that senate, we agreed that even prospectus should be faculty-based, and that no lecturer, and I mean no lecturer, should sell books to students. That is why we have the library. That is why we also have the bookshop. So I think we have dealt with that to a considerable
is that
level.
enforced?
Exactly, it is. If I hear, for instance, a lecturer is selling any book now, immediately we'll summon such lecturer to face disciplinary committee. But you see, too many hearsays. It's a major problem that we have in the university. People will come to tell you, by the time you investigate, it's not true. But they take that to outside the gates, and then it becomes almost like a tradition. We're doing the much that we can do, and that's not saying that the system is totally now void of all these issues. But Rome wasn't built in a day, and I think that with time, as we begin to find students who are bold enough to come out to say, yes, this is what happened. I actually was compelled to buy a book, and then at that point, we will then use such persons as deterrent, so that others would know that we mean business.
Yeah, you may not be in the right position to talk on this particular question, but it affects you.
Yes.
When it comes to the relationship between the federal government and ASUU, at some point it's cordial, at some other point it goes sour. To what extent has that been able to affect, learning?
Well, again, remember, once you are a lecturer, at least most of us are ASUU members.
Yeah.
And so we can't, there's no win-win here. We're not talking about, there are issues that we must go back to the drawing board, and I mean in terms of ASUU, which is what I have advised my friend, the president, that we must have a, education summit that is sponsored by us, and so that we can tell ourselves the hard truth. We can also re-strategize. You don't continue to do the same thing and expect to have different results. It won't work that way. So yes, ASUU has been there. They have fought. Where we are today is because of their doggedness, but at the same time, that is not saying that there are areas that we cannot polish. For government, it's difficult for you to begin to dictate to the man who pays your salary, who puts food on your table.
Yeah.
And so we have issues really in the university, and I always boldly say to my colleagues and friends that even what ASUU is fighting is those that are very obvious. Funding, for instance, is a major problem with the universities. So there are all kinds of issues, but we can only have that if we come together as a group, re-strategize, come up with positions on every issue, and then we can discuss with government that this is where we are, this is what it is. If you don't want us to, for instance, charge, which of course I don't think is going to happen anytime soon, now tell us, what are you bringing to the table? And then after that, we can now go back to be more scientific in what a student should contribute to the light. For instance, most universities, and I don't see any university that is paying less than maybe 50 million a month to run electricity, and that is not including the high cost of diesel. In my university, we spend more than 60 million
for power alone.
For power alone. If you then add diesel, we're probably looking at 80-something million. Now, your principal gives you 11 million. You must generate that, because the students are so restive. Sometimes I joke with them and I say, 3 hours you don't have light, you take to the streets. And University of Benin is blessed because we are just a walk to the highway. So they take to the highway. Now, so we must create a conducive environment. We must create an environment where the students are able to learn without rancors and allutas and all of that stuff. So our vice chancellors magicians, and I say yes, because now we have to,
to get the gap.
Yeah, exactly. And then where are we? We don't. When people say IGR, I say to them, where are you developing the IGR? Is it how much bread will you sell to be able to pay for electricity? How much water will you sell to be able to pay for electricity? What we have in the university is intellectual, property that we can't sell. But unless those who need that intellectual, like I talked about research now, come to us, we really can't do much. So our hands are tied, but we must carry out our mandate, which is of course to teach, learn, and to carry out research and community development. All of that must be done.
Okay, before we go, we'll take, how can we come out from the challenges you enumerated concerning employment of staff? If we don't have adequate staff, it will, tell on learning, because we are going to have a particular lecturer having to teach 7, 8, call it subjects.
Yes.
So how can we come out? If you are to meet with the president, President Muhammadu Buhari, one-on-one, what will you tell him concerning
first of all, I think there is a need for us to lift the ban on employment. We should be realistic that the system is a revolving system, it's a dynamic system, so you can't kill it. And then again, we don't want to be slave drivers. Now, by the time a lecturer is teaching above his capacity, of course you know that effectiveness is compromised at that point. And so we want to be sure that if we get employment, we'll be able to at least fill in those gaps. What I did, for instance, in my university, was to look at the non-teaching staff. And I said to them, you have a master's, a strong master's. What are you doing in the that's not to say that we don't need those kind of quality persons in the non-teaching area, because they are also a part of a system. But I pulled a lot of them. And as I speak to you now, I'm sure I have more than 500 that I pulled out from the non-teaching. And for those whom we felt needed to have some brush up here and there, we've given a training leave too, so that when they return back, at least they would add. And these persons also, a good advantage of that is that these persons are committed. They know that you have helped them to develop themselves, and so they want to come back to pay to the system, rather than somebody you're employing from somewhere else who probably just sees it as a job. But that is one way. But I think federal government must vacate the position of the ban on employment, because I think most universities are actually yelling and crying to have quality lecturers.
Okay, thank you so much for your time with us on this program. It's just that there's so many things coming to my mind. I don't know if I can have a word or two concerning the IPPIS.
Yes, well, I think I probably won't be in a good position to
I know it's an ASU thing, and you have talked about ASU.
Yes. But we all really know that the salaries of the teaching staff or the university staff is way below where we should be. I tell you, federal, I should drop this indeed, federal vice chancellors you'll be shocked what they earn monthly. Each time I say it, people is like it's not true, and I say, look, you want me to show you my pay slip? So we can't be working so hard and taking very little home. So I think we need to look at that. If federal government believes in IPPS so much, I think that also has their own argument. But here, I'm not here to judge all of that.
I know,
but all I know is
just
that I think we need to have some level of input and output forming an equilibrium where we work so hard, we should also be paid commensurate to.
Not like walk like an elephant and eat like an ant.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Professor
Thank you.
Lillian Salami, for your time with us on the program.
Thank you for having me, and I'm sure that there are still so many questions that
so
you know.
they're just there,
yes.
and we just have to end it maybe some other time.
Yes.
We hope you'll be available.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
All right,
you.
because that's how much we have on this discussion segment with the Vice Chancellor of University of Benin, and of course, so much has been said concerning how the school is upping its game. If you follow the discussion, she talked about the fact that as we speak, there's a vehicle developed, by that school waiting, for some intervention. And if you are in doubt, why not reach out to the University of Benin? Something can be done, and it's what we talk about, where you have good learning, and it's coming out with call it creating employment. And if you have employment, why do we have to be, jetting out almost on a daily basis in search of greener pastures elsewhere, when, of course, the green pasture is actually here in Nigeria? So it's on this note, I say, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, there are other discussions. Stay with us.